people? It is Dave, Duncan, Kyle, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have been checking out the new album from Polish Progressive Grindcore band Antigama. The band's new album, Whiteout, don't do it, will be released on July 15th via
Well, the song is Wipeout, but every time I hear it, I just like... Wipeout! I wasn't gonna, and then you mentioned it. We spoke about this earlier on a different review. If you set me up, see, don't do it, don't press the red button. You're all pressing it, and we're all fucked.
Yeah, I know. July 15th, Selfmadegod Records. This is the first full length from Antigama in 7 years. The last full length being The Insolent, which was in 2015. Although they did release a mini LP in 2017 called Depressant. Antigama have been active for 22 years. Ooh. And Whiteout will be album number 8 from the band. I can't believe I've never heard of these guys. What is going on?
Yeah, this kind of feels like you've dropped the ball here.
It really does. It really does.
Like, dropped it hard.
Yeah, the album was recorded and mixed at JNS Studio between May and September 2021 by Paweł Grabowski and Antigama, and then mastered by James Plotkin at Plotkin Works. So, this album was selected as part of our album review roulette a couple of weeks back, which Kyle randomly selected.
It's been a Kyle.
We were kind of going into this blind, other than knowing what the genre was, which was progressive grindcore. Kyle.
Hello.
You've been in Norway. These guys been in Poland. I've got a feeling there's maybe a little connection here. You know, maybe there's something happening between you and these guys.
I think you need to look at a map again. Poland's quite far away from Norway.
Shut up, Duncan. Didn't ask for your opinion. Kyle.
That great Scandinavian country, Poland.
It could be.
Home of Vikings. What are we doing here? It's on the other side of Germany.
Norway and Poland, like this.
Norway.
The Western Balkan country, Norway.
You can almost hug them, Kyle.
In fairness, we have established in the past that Kyle has travelled a bit, and he was kind of, for a while you lived on that side of Europe. So
I sure did.
So yeah, but just once again, just in case any geography kids are listening to this, or anyone at school for some reason has stumbled across this. Norway is nowhere near Poland, and if you write that on a paper, you will fail hard. And you can't use the excuse Dave from Metal Epidemic said they were this close.
It's not
apparently
physically close, but
literally docking their dicks. You know what I mean? Like foreskins over each other. That's not happening. They're not the.
Listen, they're connected at the heart. All right. Say connected at the heart.
Yeah. It's
Kyle.
a feeling. It's a spiritual connection.
Did you have any connection to this new Antigama album, which is the first album in 7 years? I'm assuming that, from the reaction, what was it called? Album review roulette. None of us had heard of Antigama before, surprisingly. But what did you make of this? What did you think of the new album?
As a massive fan of Polish metal, and especially death metal, I'm surprised I never heard of them either. Completely slipped me by. What I'm going to go look later and see if I actually have one of their CDs in my big box of Polish death metal, and I probably will have.
My big box of Polish death metal,
and it's just Polish death
Kyle
metal.
shouted at his wife, "We must bring down from the loft the big box of Polish death metal."
She's like, "Oh no, not again." I just got my back repaired, for fuck's sake.
Also love the idea that every time that you open the big box of Polish death metal, a skeleton and bats fall it.
It's like that scene in Pulp Fiction with the golden light.
Yep, you open it, but you never see what's inside it.
Yeah, never. Yeah. I'm just like, I'll take this one.
And that one would be Antigama, which was... Oh, no, wait, this is the new one. First one in 7 years, Kyle. That's the second.
Yeah. 22 years they've been going. And it shows, because this is like pretty good songwriting for a grindcore band.
Yeah.
Not my favorite genre. I feel like I say that a lot when I do metal reviews. Like, not my favorite genre. Do you like metal, Kyle? Like,
Yeah.
I like one band, one time of the year, specific time of day. 9 Inch Nails. So yeah, I liked it actually. Grindcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, not my favorite thing, but you put progressive in front of anything, and I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. So, like, Grindcore to me is I do lots of very short songs, very, very intense songs, lots of blast beats, lots of crazy shit, and I'm just like, okay, it's cool, but it's not really my thing. Fair enough. But this, I got along with surprisingly well. Drum fuckery aside.
Literally, like about 5 seconds into the first song, and I was like, Kyle's going to have issues here.
I had issues to begin with, but then I did my best to look past it.
To me, it's more triggers than. I think it's more, but I think it's actually more triggers than it is anything else. Which, once again, if you're going with the genre, is not uncommon in grindcore.
No,
yeah, especially for something that this style, the snare is usually typically pretty fast. Yeah. So you need something that's going to cut through. You know, samples or triggers is probably quite a common thing with this genre.
And they're not like awful samples either. They're like they're actually pretty good sounding, and they sound kind of natural. So it's not like it's a lot of stuff we've heard where it's just like, fuck me, that is just one snare with no layers. Yeah, it's like it's actually sounds pretty like the dude is playing. It's not like time aligned. It's him playing, but they've just sort of reinforced it with samples, and that's fucking Megadeth did that 20 years ago. So I mean, who the fuck are we to complain, right?
Well, you do, Kyle. Pretty much in every review. Sorry.
Yeah, because deathcore sucks.
I mean,
moving on swiftly. Antigama. I mean, I listened to this quite a few times, and let me say that song "Holy Hand" instant.
Oh, the riff at the beginning of "Holy Hand" is like right from what's the name of the song on Demanufacture that I love? This may be my favorite riff ever on a.
It was
Body Hammer.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
it reminded me of Body Hammer. I was like, yes, everything about this right now is tickling my taint.
The first 2 songs, or 3 songs, however many it is before Holy Hand, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Holy Hand came, and I was like, fuck yes. Fuck yes. Sell me on the strength of this one song alone, and I'm in. And then the rest of it kind of switches between the more intense and the sort of Holy Hand, more riff stuff, and I was like, I was really enjoying it, way more than I thought when I read Grindcore. I was like, oh, good. But no, I mean, I don't really like grind. It's probably pretty good. But no, I had a great time with this song. The production's actually, the guitar tones are fucking threatening. They're like right in your ear. It's just crazy. Could have done with a little bit more bass for me, but I mean, at that speed, it will probably just be like in your ears anyway. So I'm not surprised they do more of the grindy top end of the bass than the low. So, and the vocal tone on the vocalist is just. That scream is just unfucking godly. It's unbelievable. Which song is it? It's a line, I think. No, unclear conversions. My eyesight sucks. I have to like lean in to read the song title. He ends it with just and it's just like fucking hell. That's one guy.
Yeah,
doing one scream to one microphone, and it was like. Just couldn't believe it. That was just like, okay. Great way to end a song as well. Just scream. There's a lot of stuff to love on this. And for someone who's not a grind fan, I really did get along with it quite well. And I played it quite a few times on repeat as well. So I was like, And I did like that they named their last song 2222 after 22 years of being in service.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, you'd be remiss by not mentioning the fact that the sexy sax is on that. Once again, returning the sound of the sax.
Yep.
Sax solo in there.
Get right there, but you jumped in before me.
Yeah, I recently rewatched The Lost Boys, and I still believe. Difficult to watch that scene and not actually oil your whole body up with purple leather pants and just start going. But I still believe. I still believe.
To watch that movie.
Yeah.
So,
Cheers.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. I, on the other hand, do love a bit of grindcore.
Dave is Mr. Grindcore.
So, as soon as this kicked in, and I'm talking about 10 seconds max of the first track, I got just waves of Napalm Death. That was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like
Holy hand, Dave, not holy shit.
Holy hand. This is fucking awesome. And it wasn't like, oh, this sounds like a Napalm Death ripoff. It was more of a like, holy shit balls, this is going to be fucking awesome. And when I say Napalm Death, it's probably more in the kind of recent kind of Napalm Death type stuff.
Stuff from just in the last like 5 years.
This has a more kind of like modern grindcore kind of sound, rather than bands like Brutal Truth or Rotten Sound, like the kind of older stuff. From the get-go though, this is like machine gun blasts, savage riffs, hostile as fuck vocals, and just like all bundled up into a kind of ball of fiery intensity. But what I found really satisfying, kind of similar to what Kyle was saying, is they don't just like step on the gas for like, what is it, like 28 minutes or whatever this album is. They have those moments where they just kind of like slow it down, and then they throw a track like Holy Hand in, which has got this kind of like mid-pace.
Makes you sit there and say to yourself, holy hand.
Had this like kind of like mid-pace kind of Pig Destroyer type kind of groove kind of going on.
It's a thrash riff. That right there is about as thrash a riff that has ever thrashed out of a guitar. see if Metallica could write anything remotely interesting than that in the last 20 years, I might want to listen to them.
Yeah. Holy thrash hand, Batman. And for me, like I definitely got the kind of like the kind of Pig
Holy
Destroyer.
hand thrash.
Had that before. I definitely got the kind of Pig Destroyer type vibes on that track, and it's like the longest track on the album. It's like the fuck.
Sorry, that I actually got like a call came in there, just cancelled it. You're all right.
Yeah, it's almost like kind of 4 minutes long. So I like they kind of slowed down things for a decent amount of time before like tearing you a new arsehole on the next track. But there's also some like kind of eerie, kind of experimental guitars on that track, which are like quite dissonant, almost kind of like really kind of tangled sounding. Had like a not quite as intense, but like a Imperial Triumphant type kind of like streak to it, if you know what I mean. Which was really cool, really unexpected as well. And like the guitar playing in particular is well worth a mention here, because it is fucking killer.
Yeah.
Like not only is it varied and precise, but the riffs just absolutely tear your face off. Like very disjointed and jagged. Like Pig Destroyer meets Gadget, but a bit of kind of Napalm Death in there. And the way that they kind of jump in tempo and sync up with the bass drums and stuff is absolutely awesome. The drummer's an absolute beast as well. But yeah, the guitars really impressed me. Just really good shreddy guitars. If you know, guitarist maybe should have been called something like Shreddy Krueger or something like that. Just he wants to change his name.
You did not go there. You're a bad man.
What?
There are people listening to this right now fucking booing their devices right now.
What?
Let me put it this way, the Oscar music should be played and you should be taken off stage, right? That's all.
Freddy Krueger, that's what it should be called. I mean, Sebastian's cool. I mean, it's alright. But even a middle name like Freddy Krueger.
Sebastian Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, that worked. Okay, vocals. I want to talk about the vocals.
Let's do the vocals, Dave, because we're a distinct lack of vocal conversation just now.
Yeah. Vocals are really cool. Like I think the vocals have a really cool tone. And at first I was like, okay, maybe he's just going to do this really like visceral tone throughout the album, but it doesn't. He mixes it up. There's some really cool mids in there, almost like kind of shouty, kind of hardcore punk type vocals. Really cool. Really enjoyed that. One thing that did kind of bother me though, there's something in the vocal production. There is something going on there. At times it sounded like there was maybe some kind of effect on his voice. It almost sounds like he's underwater at times. I might be totally wrong here, but at first I was like, I'm not sure about that. And then as the album went on, I got into the kind of second half of the album, and it kind of bothered me less and less. But it wasn't distracting enough to kind of take me out of the album. But sometimes it sounded like it was maybe doubled up with something, or there was some kind of effect on there. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but it was something kind of bugging me a little bit. But then at times, it was the kind of reason that the tracks were memorable as well, because there was a particular sound of the vocals that kind of made me kind of think about that track. So it kind of worked in its favour, oddly, as well at the same time. But I loved the vocals. I loved his tone. I think he's absolutely killer. Lots of like hostility in his voice, which is really cool. There was just something in the the production of it that I wasn't quite sure about. Great length, 28 minutes, like really easy listen. And because they like to play with tempo and rhythm, it didn't just become like half an hour of blast beats and grind riffs. It's got a lot of really nice slower parts, some like kind of almost kind of cleaner vocals in there as well, and some nice kind of nods to the kind of old hardcore punk bands as well. Muteness and Hindrance both had that like kind of hardcore punk type elements in the vocals and the riffs and rhythms, which is cool. Highlights were obviously Holy Hand, which we mentioned, really cool grooves on that one. Unclear Conversions was the other one that I really liked. Really awesome. Great verses. Just, filled with relentless blasts and riffs that are really like kind of contorted. But what's cool is because it's so visceral, when it breaks into the groove at about like a minute into that track, it's really satisfying because you just like feel your head go as that kind of kicks in. So really nice kind of transitions from the really intense stuff into the grooves. The last track that you meant is cool as well. The last track with a bit of brass on it. Again, it feels a bit more experimental, being the last track of the album. As I mentioned, a little bit of Imperial Triumphant, or even Ethel Duath as well, had that kind of like crazy kind of jazzy kind of darkness to it as well, which I really enjoyed. Like the production on this, it was a lot cleaner than I was expecting for a grind album. Like recently we've had a lot of bands go extremely filthy and grimy, like you're full of hell and all that sort of stuff in the production. But this had a more kind of modern sound, like a kind of crisp Pig Destroyer, that kind of like Book Burner or Head Cage, those types of albums.
I like that, because I think if you go the other way, I think you lose some of that distinction in the guitar work.
Yeah, you can do, yeah. Or even Gadget as well, another one, The Great Destroyer, had that kind of similar type vibe. So I was really impressed that it's cool to hear bands still, they can play like demons and write this really ferocious material, but they can still package it up with a production that sounds current, but still has a bit of texture to it as well. So yeah, I mean, I love grindcore. This was right up my street. Not like anything like revolutionary on the grindcore front, but I like this particular style. I got a kind of ton of satisfaction from it. Lots of air drums being played as well during this album. A lot of this. Yeah.
You can't not.
Yeah, you can't not, yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Duncan, what are you thinking?
So, a couple of things.
Okay.
Once again, glad that I don't do the old linear notes from the PR company. I'm struggling to get my head around the progressive elements here.
Right.
To be honest, I think you are right. There are times where they throw a kind of more discordant guitar styling.
Yeah,
but
it's quite
then
minimal.
that to me is, it's not prominent in here, and it's not things that other grindcore bands don't utilize for the most part. The aforementioned Pig Destroyer is a great example of that. If the progression is a progression into the world of kind of early 90s thrash, then yeah, if that's what we're progressing out to, this album actually owes quite a lot to that, specifically in the guitar work, and you get it not on tracks like Holy Hand, but even like that, like those, when you were talking about the breaking into the grooves, a lot of those grooves that kick in are reminiscent in 90s, like 90s thrash. A track like The Howler, the second last song, which is a fucking awesome song, and no one's mentioned it yet, and I'll mention it right now, which starts off.
Right. I get what you're doing there.
Yeah, I was sort of although I think a howler's something like, is a howler not like it's basically like a locking
version though.
Yeah, no, I think it's like locking.
Absolute howler. No.
I think in America it means you get locked in a bar to drink. Right. You come to the 33rd annual Howler. I don't know, that's in Minnesota, maybe, from that accent. Could be anywhere, to be honest with you. Could be Timbuktu, but that's a different podcast.
Tim Horton, I thought you were going to say that.
Tim Horton. It could be Tim Horton. It could be. What are you talking about? You know what you're doing wrong there. You want a boot. That's also, once again, nothing like a Canadian accent. I apologise to our listeners in Canada. We love you very much. Subscribe and like. But the Howler, which is predominantly like very, very intense kind of grindcore at the beginning, and then switches almost effortlessly at the halfway mark right into a big old thrash riff. And it sounds great, although it's a kind of 90s death metal inspired thrash riff, and it works really, really well. So a couple of points that I want to make on this one. One, I don't think there is fuckery on the vocals.
No.
I think that's his tone. And what I think they're doing is actually, I think that particular tone that sounds kind of kind of muggy is the word I would use, is I think they're just raising it in the mix. And I think he's doing you know how like some people do the kind of cookie monster vocal, and the guy's like, you're so low in the mix, I have to fucking turn it up because no one can fucking hear it. So what do you mean? Oh, I need to turn this up. I think it's that, and I also think it's doubled.
Yeah.
So I think it's doubled, but it's not synced up perfectly.
Could
so
be.
I think there's a kind of slight variance there, but I don't think there's an effect necessarily over it. I think it's just doubled and raised in the mix. So that was one thing I wanted to say. Second thing I wanted to say is I kind of love-hate the production on this. For the most part, I think, and this is where I'm going to get hate mail from Dave. He will actually text it out to me rather than call me out on the show. That's what he does. So I get hate mail. I think at times the drums are a little bit too loud, if I'm honest. Not all the way through it, and it's not consistent, but at times I felt they were just too predominant with everything else. When the vocals themselves are not as loud as what I'm hearing on the drums, that at times can be an issue for me, and I feel like as a vocalist you should be like clearly audible above everything else. Speaking as a vocalist. So that was a little observation there. Guitar work on this is fucking preem. It's like honestly, it's top level, premier, excellent. He code switches at styles with ease, pace, and all the rest. The drummer is incredible as well because he makes it sound. The transitions work so smooth. My issue with some grindcore, the reason I'm not the biggest fan of it, is that sometimes the transitions sound abrupt because they're like, well, how do we get into this amazing riff you've done? Well, we'll just play it anyway. We'll just hit the snare drum and then just go into something else. They never did this. The transitions work really, really, really smooth, and I love that aspect about it. Like you guys were saying, I don't necessarily think anything you're hearing on here is something you've never heard before. But in a world where, like we said before, like there are producers now and bands that want to take that grindcore style and make it like sound dank and basement-like. There's something really refreshing about a kind of traditional approach to making things sound very clean and pristine on a grindcore release, especially when you're going to code switch into those thrash riffs. That's not going to transition well. That needs to be audible. It needs to have the grooves, and the grooves are great on this one. I think personally that I would have liked a bit more of a 50-50 on the styling, if I'm honest. And I think 2222 or 2222 or 2222. I don't know, the band wrote it down. I think that track is tantalising on what they could be doing in that more progressive vein of, we mentioned it, Imperial Triumphant, a band that really throws everything. I'm fairly sure they play a kitchen sink in their album. There's that much instrumentation in it. But they verged into that, and it shouldn't have worked as good as it did, and it really fucking worked well, to the point that I would like to see them be a bit more daring. Like like it's not a safe sounding album by any stretch of the imagination, but there were segments where I felt like I have heard other bands do this stuff at that level before, and the final track was the one where I actually started to hear something a bit more experimental, dare I say a bit more progressive, and it worked really fucking well. So I would like to see them maybe try a bit more of that, maybe think a little bit more out of the box, because they can clearly do it. Out with that though, it's very rare that I sit here on grindcore release and talk with as many positives as I have, and my grade will reflect it as such.
Interesting. Okay, so Antigama and the new album Whiteout. What are we going to score this one? What are we giving to this album? Kyle, what is your scoring for this album?
This one is going to be a 4.
4 from Kyle. Excellent. I will join you on that 4 out of 5, Kyle. I really enjoyed this. Good pacing, good variety of tempo, plenty of meaty riffs, and production that's punchy but not underproduced. Plus sits nicely under that 30-minute mark, which just makes it easier to hit the play button.
It's got some tasty David Lynch saxophone.
It does have some tasty David Lynch, but I thought you were going to say it has some tasty Dave on it, and I was like, Dave on this?
Oh, really? Tasty Dave.
I just when you pull up to the drive-thru and like, can I take your order? And I'm like, I'll have one tasty Dave, please. I'm fries with that shake.
Large?
Only comes in large, Dave. Only comes in large. Super size, me. I'm sorry, we can't perform that procedure. Medically painful.
Duncan, why are you scoring this a 3.5?
See, Dave, that's where you're wrong. I'm scoring at 4. See,
you were going 3.5,
like,
weren't you?
Sometimes smugness does not.
You were going 3.5, but I'm glad I pushed you at a 4 though. That's good.
No, 4. Like I said before, once again, my biggest gripe here is that at times the production, I feel, is a little bit inconsistent in terms of the mix overall. The songs are great though. Like see the groove stuff, like the transitions into the groove stuff. There are bands just not doing that, not like fully aware that you can change and not have a song at just like ball kicking pace all the way from start to finish, and they do that, which to me just shows maturity. And they're 22 years. I think that's what you get when 22 years in the grind. It's the reason Napalm Death are so interesting right now, is that they've done all the extremist shit they've ever done, and then they're like, you know what, we can just do what we want. And I think we get a taste of that on here. Definitely a 4. I think where they go up a 0.5 or even maybe more than that is the stuff that they were doing towards the end. They just do a bit more of that because it's so fucking good. And I'm not saying they have to have a saxophone in every song before people start fucking commenting. You don't have to do that. But even the playing in the background is more jazz-like, and they clearly can do it. So a bit more of that, I think, personally breaks the album a bit more. So 4, you couldn't give it less than a 4.
No, you couldn't. I agree.
So no, you were thinking I was going to give it less than a 4.
I did. Yeah, pretty sure.
Fuck you, Dave.
Antigama and Whiteout on July 15th on Selfmadegod Records. Links below to the band's Facebook and to the Bandcamp so you can check it out. Let us know what you think of this one. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.